Opus 4.8 just dropped and it allows us to create a dashboard that looks exactly like this in less than 4 prompts. I'm going to show you how to go from having to log into 2 different dashboards in order to see what's going on with your agent to a singular page that looks gorgeous that you can share with your clients in less than 15 minutes. So here's a problem we're going to solve. We have a business that has multiple different venues and they have a voice agent on one side and they have a chat agent on the other side. The voice agent lives on Vappy, which is fine, and the chat agent lives on end-to-end with all these different workflows. The issue is I don't want to have to go into both of these different portals in order to see what's actually happening. I also don't have information about how these compare. This dashboard allows me to actually see how my agent's performing, how many texts am I getting, how many calls am I getting, and what is the split, what are people asking about, how many tickets were raised, how many submissions were sent in. And I'm going to show you in the next 15 minutes how to build a dashboard that looks exactly like this. Without further ado, let's get started. All I'm going to do is I'm going to open up VS Code. You can do this in any IDE or any terminal. Make sure you have Claude installed and make sure you're also running 4.8. In case you aren't, all you have to do is you just do, first of all, do Claude to see if you even have Claude installed. If not, there's plenty of content about how to install Claude. And this should say Opus 4.8. Now, if it doesn't say Opus 4.8, what you actually want to do is I'm going to do exit first. You want to do Claude update. And that should then try to run the update for Claude. Now, since I already have it, it's not going to work. However, in your case, in case you were running a previous version of Claude, this is what you need to do in order to update it. So let me go back again. I can close this tab right here. And now here's what I've done to actually get to this point. So end-to-end has a bunch of workflows, right? I have, if I zoom out, I actually made a video going over how this agent works, but the long story short of it is we have both agents, and both agents, chat and voice, both use the same set of tools, which are these right here. And the business is called Venues for All. This is a venue business with a couple different locations. They have calendars and people can do a few things. You can either ask a question, you can search the calendar, you can submit a request to actually book, or you can open a customer service ticket, and you can also search the knowledge base, which is kind of asking a question. So that's what these flows are for. These flows will be available with this video as well, so don't necessarily worry about that. I've just downloaded these, and you can see here, these tools are also the same tools that are available on Vappy. So if I look at my Vappy agent, go to tools, you'll see these are the same tools that are available for the other one. Check availability, knowledge base lookup, submit booking inquiry, and submit ticket inquiry or submit ticket. The reason we have both of these instances using the same tools is I don't want to have to do double the work. If I create a tool, let's say a brand new tool, let's say I want people to be able to book, I don't want to have to go into Vappy and then build a tool there and then go into end-to-end and then build another tool there. It's just double the work for nothing. So end-to-end is the central piece, and then end-to-end chat UI is how people interact using chat, and Vappy is how people interact using voice. So now that we have that out of the way, let's actually jump back into Claude. All I've told it is make me a dashboard that combines both my chat and voice agent. Chat agent is on end-to-end while voice is on Vappy. I'll paste the voice prompt as well as the end-to-end workflows. Keep the stack as simple as possible. Deploy and versatile. Doesn't need to be super secure. I'm looking for proof of concept to show my friends. Make it pretty and use the design dashboard skill. Now, the design dashboard skill, this actually reminds me of something super important, which is I've actually taken a skill called design dashboard.md. This is a skill that I will make available obviously to you. And essentially it just provides some general guidelines about how to design common dashboards, what KPIs we're looking for. And this skill is essentially just a way for Claude to know what type of design I'm looking for. There's actually a website that I found, which I really like, and it goes over how to, a bunch of different skills. Here's a bunch of skills that could be useful to you in the event you need them. Feel free to go to firecrawl.dev/blog/best-code skills, and then there's a bunch of these Firecrawl, Andre Karpathy's guidelines, etc. And skills are simply just snippets of guidance that you provide your agent to make it easier for it to understand how you want a specific thing to be done. Because otherwise, if you do not provide this, then it'll just work with whatever is in this training data, which is how you end up with slop. This is essentially a way of, without having to type in every single time, here's how I want you to do this action, especially if there's something that you're doing again and again and again. For me, creating dashboards is a fairly common thing. That's what you create a skill for. Now that we have that out of the way, I'm going to go back into my prompt, and then all I put here is the voice agent prompt. So then I press enter. So all I put in here as well is what I actually want to see on my dashboard. So I told it I want to see the number of leads, number of tickets, how long conversations usually are, and that's a good starting point. I'm going to dump this into 4.8 using a specialized prompt. So now what it's doing, as you can see here, is it can see that I've already provided the voice prompt at end-to-end flows. So it's reading through those first, and then it'll come up with the an actual design. That's going to take a little bit of time, but that's okay. Now, while this thing is over here sauteing or whatever it's doing, it's worth at least me going over the differences between 4.7 and 4.8. There's actually entire documentation about 4.8, and there's really only 2 things that changed bigly or in a big way. The first one is its capability to be honest. I mean, it is a little slightly better across the board. It's slightly more intelligent, etc. It's great. You can see here, you can see all these. And however, there's one feature that I really liked, and I just used it previously to make a testing agent. If you want to watch that video, feel free to do so after this. However, essentially it's using a tool or new feature called dynamic workflows, which essentially allows you to generate hundreds of different agents that will then check each other's work and come up with test cases. Or when you have big projects and you want a lot of firepower, it consumes a tremendous amount of tokens. I'm talking like I spent 2.5 million tokens in like 30 minutes, right? So it consumes a huge amount of tokens. However, if you have a big project that you're trying to start and you want your agents to check each other, that's where I've seen dynamic workflows be super helpful. It's also a lot better at being honest. One of the issues with 4.7 and 4.6 is it would always tell me, oh yeah, you're right, I fixed it, and that hasn't actually fixed anything, or it broke something else at the same time. So those are probably the biggest differences between 4.7 and 4.8. It's a marginal improvement intelligence wise, however, a pretty big jump, especially using the dynamic workflows, as long as you're careful with how you use it and to only pull it out when you really need that ace. Now, if I go back to the Claude, it says, how live do you want the data for this proof of concept? Also, produce the same code base. This is just decide what I wire up now versus leave ready to flip on. I've never seen it actually design me as something in ASCII like this. I think Dark Command Center will probably look even better. Let's do that. So now ask me a few questions, and I was gonna go back to generating this UI. And in case you're wondering how it knows what is an end-to-end, all I did was I came into each one of these automations, which will be available in the link in the description, and I just downloaded these because these are just JSON files. I just downloaded these, and then you put them in the file that you want, and you tell Claude to read them, and that's how it knows exactly what's happening in your end-to-end instance. You could also connect it through MCP. That's another option, but for the sake of simplicity, you can just download these, and it should work. Seems like it's almost done. It's writing a couple of environment variables. Config files are in. Amazing. I'm really curious as to what type of designs I've come up with. All right. So now, about 27 minutes later, I finally got something back, and let's see what Claude came up with. Okay, it says, oh, let me run that. Apparently, I believe it should be running now. Cool. Now, if I reload this, let's see what Claude decided to come up with. Now we're talking. Beautiful. Conversations, voice sharing, leads, tickets. So now obviously all this information is demo information, which is good to know. Customer recent conversations. Do you see how much better this looks than having to have both? Having to like log into End on its own to see what happened there, and then having to go into VAPI to see what's happening there. Now I'm giving my API key. I want to see if it's actually working. Because if it is, then the only step after that is to deploy it. So I'm going to I'm going to go back into Claude. I'm actually going to go grab a VAPI API key, because while I could put it in here like it said, I can also just grab my API key from here. Obviously, this will be deleted afterwards. Here's my API key, and I want you to run loop. I'm also going to ask it how I want to also bring in my live end-to-end data. Oh, actually, to bring it in, you just have to deploy it. So we have version 2, this one with actual real calls, and there should only be like 1 or 2 calls. So let's see what actually happens. Beautiful. Yeah, so these are the actual live calls that happen. I'm super curious to see what are the live ones. User has a request to check venue, greetings, beautiful. And obviously it's anonymous because it doesn't know who. And just to make sure that this works correctly, if I now go into VAPI and I go to assistance and I go to talk, I actually want to just to test whether or not this is live. Can you tell me about your venues?
Of course. Are you looking to check availability for one of our venues? If so, which one and for what date?
Well, I don't know what venue you guys have.
It sounds like the line's a little fuzzy. Are you looking to check availability for one of our...
Worst transcriber I've ever heard. Wow. So
Hi,
even
it's Ava.
Perfect. So even though the other one didn't hear me correctly because the transcriber is screwing up, the actual caller pulled up here, which is great. So real data is pulling up. Phenomenal. Now if I want to deploy this, all I have to do is go on Vercel, tell Claude deploy this on Vercel. Vercel is just like a deployment application. Go on Vercel, push this out, and I now have a beautiful dashboard that I can access at any time. There's obviously a lot more I can do. I could put this behind an email and password. I could have reports. I could change how this looks. But the important thing here is look at how easy this was to create. I didn't really spend much time. I mean, this took me, what, 30 minutes-ish, taking into consideration how long Claude takes. But this is how powerful these models have gotten. And I just wanted to showcase how easy this stuff is to do now. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know. Now, if you want to see how to put this in production, potentially by adding a login or by having reports that get sent to your email automatically, make sure to join the community. We have over 1,400 people in there. We're going to calls essentially every single day to help you with every and any problem you may have relating to AI, relating to business, running an AI agency, because obviously that's the world that I come from. And on that note, I'll see you in the next one.